When I look back at the days when I first started learning English, I realize it wasn't about fancy classrooms, expensive courses, or perfect teachers. It was about hunger, the hunger to grow, to connect, and to create a better version of myself. I wasn't born with a talent for languages. I didn't have access to elite institutions or the best resources. In fact, many times I felt lost, confused, and even embarrassed when I failed to understand simple words. But I knew one thing. If I wanted to change my life, if I wanted to see the world from a bigger lens, I had to master this language. Every time I faced failure, I treated it as fuel instead of shame. I practiced speaking with strangers even when they laughed at my broken sentences. I listened to tapes, read old magazines, repeated phrases again and again until my tongue got used to the rhythm. I became my own teacher. I corrected myself, motivated myself, and pushed myself because I knew no one else was going to do it for me. There were days when I wanted to quit, when it felt impossible, but I reminded myself that nothing great ever comes easy. Slowly, I discovered a powerful truth. Learning is not about where you are, it's about what you decide. You don't need a classroom to grow. The world itself can be your classroom if you have the courage to learn from it. Every street, every conversation, every mistake became my lesson. I realized that the real teacher is persistence, the real textbook is consistency, and the real exam is life itself. And today, when I speak fluently, it's not just about knowing English, it's about the journey of proving to myself that I can achieve what once felt impossible. It's about inspiring others to understand that their circumstances do not define their destiny. If I could do it without a classroom, without privilege, then anyone can. So I say this to you, don't wait for the perfect time, the perfect teacher, or the perfect resources. Start where you are, with what you have. Practice a little every day, push yourself a little further, and never stop believing that you are capable of more. Because the truth is, it's not the classroom that shapes your future. It's your courage to keep learning when no one is watching. When we talk about learning something new, especially a language like English, most people immediately think about resources. A good teacher, a well-structured classroom, expensive books, or enrolling in some prestigious institution. And yes, those things can help, but the truth is, they are not the deciding factor. What truly matters is the hunger inside you, the fire that pushes you to keep going even when the odds are stacked against you. Without that hunger, even the best resources won't change you, but with it, even the smallest opportunity can open the biggest doors. When I started, I didn't have any of the advantages people think are necessary. No polished teacher guiding me step by step, no advanced tools, not even a proper environment where people encouraged me to practice. In fact, many times I felt left behind, as if others had everything I didn't. But then I realized something powerful. The real resource I needed was already inside me. It wasn't money, it wasn't access, it wasn't connections. It was my willingness to learn. Hunger is what transforms an ordinary person into someone extraordinary. Hunger doesn't care about your background, your failures, or the voices telling you that you can't do it. Hunger creates its own path. I remember countless nights when I stayed awake just repeating words to myself, not because someone told me to, but because I couldn't sleep without learning something new. That hunger didn't let me rest. It kept whispering, if you learn this, tomorrow you will be better than today. And even though my pronunciation was broken and my grammar was full of mistakes, I felt alive because every small step reminded me that progress was happening. That is the kind of hunger you need, the kind that refuses to let you stay the same. Think about it. How many people out there have all the resources in the world, yet they don't learn? They have schools, teachers, books, internet, and yet they waste time. They give excuses. They complain about how hard it is. Why? Because they lack hunger. On the other hand, how many people in the world have nothing, yet they teach themselves, they find ways, they create opportunities? These people succeed because hunger drives them harder than comfort ever could. Hunger makes you creative. Hunger makes you resourceful. Hunger turns your environment into a learning tool. I didn't learn English by sitting in a perfect classroom. I learned it because every time I heard someone speak, I wanted to understand. Every time I saw a book, I wanted to know what it said. Every time I failed, I wanted to rise again. I wasn't competing with others, I was competing with myself. My only goal was to be better than the person I was yesterday. That mindset transformed my life, and that mindset was born out of hunger. People often ask, how do I start when I don't have good resources? My answer is simple. Start with your hunger. Hunger will make you find a way to listen to conversations, to watch movies without subtitles, to talk to strangers even when you're scared, to read a page 10 times until it makes sense. Hunger will not let you give up. When you are truly hungry to learn, you don't wait for opportunities. You create them. I want you to imagine this. A person who is truly hungry doesn't sit and wait for food to arrive. They go out, they hunt, they struggle, they fight, and they make sure they don't return empty-handed. The same principle applies to learning. If you are hungry enough, you won't wait for the perfect teacher or the perfect time. You will grab every little chance life throws at you. You will learn from conversations, from mistakes, from failures, from books you borrow, from videos you watch, from anything and everything around you. That hunger also protects you from discouragement. Because let's be honest, people will laugh, they will doubt, they will tell you it's impossible. But if you are hungry enough, their laughter becomes background noise. Their doubts become irrelevant. You don't care who believes in you because you believe in yourself. You don't care if the world says you can't because your hunger says I must. And that inner voice is louder, stronger, and more powerful than any obstacle outside you. Hunger is the secret ingredient that no classroom can give you. A teacher can inspire you, a book can guide you, but if you don't have the hunger, nothing will last. On the other hand, if you do have it, even the smallest exposure can teach you more than years in a classroom. That's the truth I discovered on my journey. Hunger is the greatest resource, the foundation of all success, and the one thing you cannot borrow from others. You have to build it yourself. When you start learning something new, especially a language, one of the first companions you meet on the journey is failure. And not just once, you meet it again and again until you almost feel like it's following you everywhere. When I was learning English, failure was not an occasional guest, it was my constant shadow. I mispronounced words, I forgot phrases in the middle of conversations, I misunderstood simple questions, and many times I embarrassed myself in front of others. And yes, people laughed, they shook their heads, they mocked, and some even told me directly that I should give up. But what they didn't know was this: every time they laughed at my broken sentences, they were actually adding fuel to my fire. In the beginning, those failures hurt. I felt small, I felt exposed, I felt as if I would never make it. But I discovered something powerful. Failure doesn't come to stop you, it comes to test you. It comes to ask you one simple question: how badly do you want this? If your answer is weak, you will give up. But if your answer is strong, you will take that failure, squeeze out the lesson, and turn it into energy for your next step. That is exactly what I did. Every time I failed to say something correctly, I didn't run away from it. I went back, practiced it again, and promised myself that the next time I would do better. If someone laughed at me, instead of letting it crush me, I told myself, one day I will speak so fluently that the same people will ask me for advice. That thought became my silent revenge. I didn't fight back with words, I fought back with progress. And slowly, those failures became my teachers. They showed me where I was weak, what I needed to fix, and how much more effort I had to put in. Without them, I would have been blind to my mistakes. Think about a child learning to walk. They fall hundreds of times before they take their first real steps. But does anyone laugh at the child? No, because falling is part of learning. Then why do we treat ourselves differently when we are adults? Why do we expect perfection from the first day? Just like walking, speaking a new language requires falling, stumbling, and failing. It's not a sign of weakness. It's proof that you are trying. Failure is not the opposite of success. It is the path to success. The truth is, failure has a unique power. It humbles you, it grounds you, but it also strengthens you. Without failure, success would feel empty. Without mistakes, progress would feel unreal. Every wrong word I spoke, every sentence I couldn't finish, every time someone didn't understand me, it all became fuel. Because inside me, there was a voice saying, if you don't quit, these failures will turn into victories. I used to practice in front of the mirror, and when I stumbled, I didn't look away. I repeated the same word 20 times until my tongue stopped fighting against it. When I couldn't understand a phrase, I replayed it again and again until it became clear. And every time I got it right, even in the smallest way, I felt victory. That victory was sweeter because it was built on top of failure. Failure also taught me resilience. Imagine if everything had been easy for me, if I spoke perfectly from the start. Would I value the language the way I do now? No. The struggle gave it meaning. The rejections gave it weight. The mistakes made the success worthwhile. And that's why I say failure is not your enemy. Failure is your hidden friend. It pushes you harder than comfort ever will. It shows you where the real growth lies. Whenever I see people afraid of making mistakes, I feel like reminding them the only real failure is not trying. Every other failure is just a stepping stone. People may laugh, but their laughter cannot decide your future. Only your persistence can. And if you take each failure as fuel, you will reach a place where those same people will stop laughing and start admiring. So when you fail, don't hang your head in shame. Lift it up with determination. Say to yourself, this mistake will not break me, it will build me. Let failure be your coach, your guide, your motivator, because once you learn to turn failure into fuel, there is nothing that can stop you. When you don't have access to classrooms, professional teachers, or structured lessons, you're left with only one option: to become your own teacher. And that's not a disadvantage, it's actually a blessing in disguise, because when you take responsibility for your own learning, you no longer depend on someone else's schedule, someone else's approval, or someone else's method. You create your own path, your own lessons, and your own progress. And in that process, you discover something far greater than just knowledge. You discover self-discipline, creativity, and independence. In my journey of learning English, there were countless times I wished someone could guide me. Someone who would sit down and explain everything step by step. Someone who would correct my mistakes gently. Someone who would encourage me when I was down. But that someone never showed up. And I realized that waiting for a teacher was just another excuse. So I stepped into that role myself. I became my own teacher, my own motivator, my own examiner. I decided that even if I was alone in the process, I would not allow myself to stay the same. Being your own teacher means you stop waiting for perfect instructions and start experimenting. I practiced speaking to myself in front of a mirror. I recorded my voice and played it back, not to feel embarrassed, but to hear where I was wrong. I turned ordinary objects into lessons. A newspaper wasn't just news, it became my reading practice. A song wasn't just entertainment, it became my listening practice. A diary wasn't just paper, it became my writing practice. Wherever I looked, I created a classroom out of it. And here's the most important thing. When you are your own teacher, mistakes don't destroy you, they educate you. In a classroom, you often feel pressure to perform correctly in front of others. You fear embarrassment. But when you teach yourself, you are free to make as many mistakes as you want. You are free to fail 10 times, 20 times, 50 times, and still get up without shame. You correct yourself, you laugh at yourself, and you keep going. That freedom becomes your biggest strength. Another part of being your own teacher is setting goals and holding yourself accountable. No one was there to give me homework, so I gave it to myself. No one was there to test me, so I tested myself. I would pick 5 words a day, repeat them until they stuck in my mind, and challenge myself to use them in sentences. I would write down small paragraphs and then check them again and again until they made sense. I wasn't just a student, I was also the examiner, and because of that, I never escaped responsibility. If I failed, it was on me. If I improved, it was because of me. That realization gave me incredible power. Being your own teacher also means becoming your own cheerleader. There will be days when progress feels invisible, when it seems like you're stuck in the same place. On those days, no one may be there to clap for you or say, keep going. That's when you must encourage yourself. I used to remind myself of how far I had already come. I celebrated small victories. The first time I understood a sentence without translation, the first time I responded quickly, the first time I read a page without stumbling too much. Those tiny wins became my fuel. I taught myself not just the language, but also how to appreciate the journey. You see, when you become your own teacher, you unlock a secret power. You stop depending on external approval. You don't need anyone to tell you whether you are capable or not, because you already know it in your heart. You don't need anyone to validate your progress, because you can see it for yourself. This independence is priceless. It not only helps you in learning English, but also in every area of life. And let me share something even deeper. Being your own teacher doesn't mean you reject the world. It means you use the world as your resource. A stranger's sentence becomes your lesson. A billboard on the street becomes your vocabulary test. A movie becomes your classroom. The world is full of teachers if you are willing to learn. But the first and most important teacher must be you. Only then can you truly absorb everything around you. So I trained myself daily. not just with words and grammar, but with mindset. I learned how to wake up with discipline, how to stay consistent even when no one was watching, how to keep believing in myself when doubt tried to take over. That is what it means to be your own teacher. It's not just about language, it's about leadership of the self. You lead your mind, your time, and your heart in the direction of growth. And once you master that, no barrier in the world can stop you. One of the greatest lessons I discovered while learning English was this: you don't need four walls, a blackboard, and a teacher standing in front of you to call it a classroom. The entire world is a classroom if you are willing to learn. Every moment, every place, and every interaction can teach you something valuable if your eyes and ears are open. I didn't have the luxury of formal lessons, but I had something better: the ability to turn ordinary situations into extraordinary opportunities to learn. I started seeing every person I met as a potential teacher. When I overheard people speaking, I didn't ignore it. I paid attention to their words, their expressions, their rhythm. I wasn't embarrassed to repeat them to myself, even quietly under my breath, just to feel how the words rolled off my tongue. When I saw a signboard on the street, I didn't just glance at it, I read it, tried to understand it, and sometimes even memorized it. When I watched a movie or listened to a song, I didn't just enjoy it passively. I paused, replayed, and repeated until the phrases sank deep into my memory. Slowly, I realized that the entire world was teaching me, and I was a student everywhere I went. This mindset changed everything. Suddenly, nothing felt like a waste of time. Standing in line at a shop became a chance to practice simple greetings. Reading the back of a product label became vocabulary practice. Talking to tourists, even with broken sentences, became speaking lessons. The world became alive with opportunities, and I became alert enough to catch them. That alertness is what made my progress faster than I ever expected. The truth is, life gives you endless opportunities to learn if you don't close yourself off. Too often people say, "I don't have the right environment to practice," but that's just an excuse. If you are surrounded by people who don't speak English, you still have books, movies, music, the internet, and even your own thoughts to practice with. You can talk to yourself in English. You can describe your surroundings in English. You can think in English. And when you do this consistently, your brain begins to adapt naturally. One of the most powerful things I did was to make English part of my daily life. I stopped treating it like a separate subject that I had to study. Instead, I made it the language of my environment. I would wake up and describe my morning routine in English. I am brushing my teeth. I am making tea. I would look at objects around me and name them in English. When I didn't know a word, I would look it up and repeat it until it felt natural. Little by little, my world turned into my personal classroom. The beauty of this approach is that it removes fear. You're not waiting for an exam or a classroom performance to prove yourself. You're learning all the time, in small, natural ways. And because it's practical, the language starts sticking in your mind faster. It's not theory anymore, it's part of your real life. The streets became my textbook. The people became my teachers, and my own mistakes became my daily lessons. Another important part of seeing the world as your classroom is curiosity. I asked questions whenever I could. If I didn't understand something, I didn't shy away. I dug deeper. Curiosity made me bold enough to step into conversations, even when I felt nervous. It made me explore beyond my comfort zone. And every time I was curious, I learned something new that no book could have taught me. The world as a classroom also teaches you flexibility. In a traditional classroom, you follow a set syllabus. But in the real world, the lessons are unexpected. Sometimes you learn patience when someone doesn't understand you. Sometimes you learn confidence when you manage to explain yourself. Sometimes you learn resilience when people laugh at your mistakes. These are lessons no textbook covers, but they are the ones that build character and fluency. I realized that the best classrooms are not built with bricks. They are built with experiences, and experiences are everywhere. Every mistake you make is a lesson. Every sentence you hear is a resource. Every attempt, no matter how small, is practice. The world doesn't just give you information, it gives you wisdom if you are willing to pay attention. So I embraced the world fully. I listened more than I spoke, I observed more than I judged, and I practiced more than I feared. And slowly, I became fluent. Not because someone taught me in a formal classroom, but because I allowed the world to teach me wherever I went. When people look at someone speaking English fluently, they often imagine it happened overnight. They think maybe that person had a natural gift, or maybe they had special resources, or maybe they just got lucky. But the truth is far simpler and far less glamorous. Fluency is not built in a single day. It is built in small steps, repeated again and again until they become unshakable habits. Consistency is the hidden force behind fluency. It is not about how fast you run, but about how long you keep moving without stopping. When I was learning, I quickly realized that studying for 1 hour today and then doing nothing for a week would never get me anywhere. I couldn't treat English like a random guest I met once in a while. I had to treat it like a close friend I spoke to every single day. Even if it was just 10 minutes, those 10 minutes mattered. Even if it was just learning 2 words, those 2 words mattered. Because small daily efforts pile up like bricks, and one day you look back and see that you've built a wall of knowledge that feels unshakable. There were days when I felt tired, lazy, or even hopeless. Days when I thought, does it even matter if I practice today? Missing one day won't make a difference. But here's the truth. Missing one day easily turns into missing two, and missing two turns into missing a week. And before you know it, you're back at the starting line. I had to fight that temptation. I had to remind myself that even the smallest step forward was still progress. That is why consistency is so powerful. Not because it brings dramatic changes immediately, but because it prevents you from sliding backward. I created simple routines for myself. Every morning, I read something in English, even if it was just a paragraph. During the day, I forced myself to think in English, even if my sentences were broken. At night, I reviewed what I learned, even if it was only a few words. It wasn't about doing everything perfectly. It was about showing up every single day. Showing up mattered more than the size of the effort. And slowly, I noticed a transformation. The words that once felt heavy on my tongue started to roll out naturally. The sentences I once struggled to understand became clearer. It wasn't magic, it was consistency. Think about it like exercising. If you go to the gym once a month and lift heavy weights, you will feel sore, but you won't build strength. But if you lift small weights every single day, your muscles will grow without you even realizing it. Language is the same. If you wait for the perfect time to study for hours, you will get tired and discouraged. But if you practice a little every day, you will grow stronger without the pressure of perfection. Consistency also trains your brain to adapt. The human brain loves patterns. When you expose it to English daily, it starts recognizing sounds, structures, and meanings naturally. At first, it feels hard because your brain is fighting old habits. But once you keep showing up, the brain begins to adjust, and suddenly the language doesn't feel foreign anymore. It feels familiar. That shift only happens when you are consistent. Another thing consistency taught me was patience. We live in a world where everyone wants quick results. People want to speak fluently in a month or master grammar in a week, but language doesn't work like that. It grows slowly, like a tree. You can water it today, but you won't see fruit tomorrow. If you quit in the middle, you'll never taste the sweetness. But if you keep watering it daily, even when it looks like nothing is happening, one day you'll wake up and find it blooming. My English was that tree. I watered it with small daily efforts, and in time it grew into something beautiful. There's also a psychological strength that consistency builds. When you keep showing up, even on days when you don't feel like it, you prove to yourself that you are stronger than your excuses. That self-discipline doesn't just help in learning English, it spills into every area of life. You become more focused, more determined, and more resilient. Consistency shapes not only your skills, but also your character. And here's the most encouraging part. Consistency doesn't mean perfection. You don't need to speak flawlessly every day. You don't need to learn 20 words at once. Even small, imperfect efforts count. What matters is that you don't stop. I had days when I mispronounced everything, when I couldn't remember half of what I studied, when I felt like I was wasting my time, but I still showed up, I still practiced, and because of that, even my bad days became part of my progress. So fluency didn't come to me like a lightning strike. It came slowly, gently, day by day, through the power of consistency. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Consistency doesn't just build fluency, it builds confidence. Because when you know you've been putting in the effort every day, you don't doubt yourself anymore. You know deep inside that you've earned the right to speak, to grow, and to succeed. When I look back at my journey, one thing becomes clear. My circumstances were never in my favor. I didn't grow up in an English-speaking environment. I didn't have wealthy parents who could afford private tutors or send me abroad. I didn't have access to the best schools, the best books, or the latest technology. On paper, my chances of becoming fluent in English were almost zero, and yet, here I am, speaking with confidence. Why? Because at the end of the day, it wasn't my circumstances that defined me. It was my courage. Courage means standing up even when everything around you tells you to sit down. It means choosing action when your environment tells you to give up. It means daring to believe that you are bigger than your situation. And this courage is what carried me through every challenge. My circumstances could have been my excuse, but instead, I chose to make them my reason. I wanted to prove that no matter where you come from, you can still rise. I remember many moments where my circumstances made me feel small. Speaking English in front of others was terrifying because I knew they would notice every mistake. People from better schools seemed more polished, more confident, more qualified. I could have easily convinced myself that I wasn't good enough. But instead, I told myself, if I don't try, my situation will never change. If I don't fight, I will remain stuck forever. That simple thought gave me the courage to keep going. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to move forward despite fear. Every time I opened my mouth to speak English, I felt fear. What if I sound silly? What if people laugh? What if I fail again? But courage whispered back, what if you succeed? What if this attempt brings you closer to your dream? And so I spoke. Sometimes I stumbled, sometimes I failed, but sometimes I succeeded. And those little successes gave me the strength to face the next challenge. People often wait for their circumstances to improve before they take action. They say, I'll start learning when I have time, when I have money, when I have better opportunities. But the truth is, waiting for the perfect moment is just another way of saying never. If I had waited for my circumstances to become favorable, I would still be waiting today. Courage taught me that you don't need perfect conditions. You just need to start where you are. There were days when I felt completely alone in my journey. No mentor, no guide, no support system. But I realized that courage often means walking alone at first. It means believing in yourself when no one else does. And slowly, that courage begins to attract opportunities, resources, and people who support you. But the first step has to come from you. If you don't move, nothing around you will move either. Courage also means refusing to be a victim of your background. I could have easily blamed my environment, my lack of resources, or my upbringing, but blame never changes anything. It only chains you to your past. I chose courage instead. I told myself, yes, I may not have what others have, but I do have determination. I do have hunger, and that is enough to start. That mindset shifted everything. Another important truth about courage is that it multiplies with practice. The first time you gather the courage to speak, it feels terrifying. The second time, it feels a little easier. The third time, easier still. Until one day you realize that the thing you once feared no longer controls you. Courage grows like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it becomes. That's how I went from being someone who hesitated to speak a single word to someone who could hold full conversations. Not because my circumstances changed overnight, but because my courage grew day by day. And here's something powerful. Courage inspires others. When people saw me trying, even with all my struggles, some laughed, but others respected me. Some even joined me. My courage gave them courage. And that is one of the most beautiful rewards of being brave. You not only change your own life, but you give permission for others to change theirs. Circumstances can make your journey harder, yes. They can slow you down, yes. But they cannot stop you if you have courage. Because courage is stronger than poverty, stronger than fear, stronger than doubt, and stronger than any obstacle life throws at you. Circumstances are temporary, but courage builds a future. So whenever I think about my journey, I don't see myself as someone who simply learned English. I see myself as someone who chose courage over circumstances, and that choice made all the difference. So when I look back at this journey, I realize it was never about classrooms, expensive teachers, or perfect resources. It was about hunger that refused to die, failures that became my fuel, the courage to teach myself when no one else would, the wisdom to see the world itself as my classroom, the discipline of showing up every single day with consistency, and the strength to choose courage over every difficult circumstance. And if there's one message I want you to carry in your heart, it's this. You don't need to wait for the perfect time, the perfect place, or the perfect conditions to begin. You already have what you need inside you: the hunger, the courage, the persistence. It's all within you, waiting for you to awaken it. Yes, people may laugh. Yes, you will make mistakes. Yes, you will fall again and again. But remember this: every failure brings you closer to fluency. Every effort plants a seed of growth, and every single day you practice, you are rewriting your future. So don't let your background limit you. Don't let your circumstances define you. Don't let fear silence you. Stand tall, take the first step, and keep moving, because one day the same world that once doubted you will look at you with admiration. And on that day, you will realize it was never the classroom that gave you success. It was you